No one knows how it got there. A strip of linen, 4.5 meters long, kept in a cathedral in Turin behind 4 layers of bulletproof glass. On it, a man, his body pressed into the fabric, front and back, like a shadow that forgot to leave. Wounds at the wrists, a tear along the right side. A face, calm, eyes closed, as if he simply decided to stop. You look at it and something shifts. Not belief, not the opposite of belief. Something quieter, like the feeling of standing in a room you've never been in before, and somehow knowing which drawer is empty. There are over 10,000 scientific papers about this cloth, more than about any other artifact in human history. Teams of forensic scientists, carbon chemists, immunologists, textile experts, all of them have had their turn. And after all of it, the conclusion is, we don't know. We don't know how the image got there. But here is the part that should unsettle you more than any of that. The church itself, within 40 years of this cloth first appearing in public, declared it a forgery, announced that an artist had confessed to painting it, named no name, and then allowed it to keep being venerated anyway. A 600-year-old piece of linen, officially called fake by its own institution, studied harder than the moon, still drawing millions of people to a cathedral in northern Italy. What are they looking for? What are you looking for, right now, watching this, at whatever hour it happens to be where you are? Scene 1. Turin. The evening of May 28, 1898. The cathedral is mostly empty by the time Secondo Pia finishes setting up his equipment. He is a lawyer by profession, a photographer by passion, and tonight he has been given permission no one has ever been given before, to take the first official photographs of the Shroud of Turin. Electric arc lamps have been installed specially for the occasion. The light is harsh, white, industrial. It floods the dim chapel. Pia adjusts his camera, exposes the plates, notes the time. He packs up carefully, rides home through the quiet city streets, and goes down to his darkroom. He slides the first plate into the chemical bath. He watches the image begin to appear, and then he nearly drops it. What he sees on the negative does not match what he saw with his eyes in the cathedral. On the cloth, the image is faint, a brownish, barely there shadow. The face almost indistinct, like something half remembered. For 500 years, pilgrims had stood before this shape and called it sacred. Kings and popes, the dying, the desperate. But on the negative plate, the image flips. What was dark becomes light. What was light becomes shadow. And what emerges is a face, fully formed. A man with a beard, eyes closed, the bones of the brow and jaw catching the reversed light. Three-dimensional in a way that makes the room feel smaller. Not like a painting becoming clearer, like something becoming visible for the first time. Pia stands in the red-lit dark. His hands are shaking. He does not sleep that night. Here's what he understood standing there. The real image, the one with depth, with form, with the quality that would drive scientists to study it for a century, was never visible to the naked eye. It was always there, hidden inside the negative. You had to reverse it to see it. Now consider the problem this creates. A photographic negative requires that light and shadow be inverted at the moment of the image's creation. The darkest parts of the cloth correspond to the raised surfaces of the body, the tip of the nose, the ridge of the brow, the cheekbones. The farther from the cloth, the darker the mark. No painter thinks in negatives. No painter working in medieval France constructs a composition that only reveals itself when reversed. The very concept did not exist. Photography would not be invented for another 450 years. Pia publishes his photographs. The world looks. Scientists begin lining up to ask, how? They are still in line. Scene 2. Lirey, France. Winter, 1389. Pierre Darcy, Bishop of Troyes, is at his writing desk. The room is cold. A candle, the scratch of his quill. Outside, France is exhausted. 52 years of war with England. Fields burned. Armies moving through villages like slow disasters. The papacy itself has cracked in two. One pope in Rome, one in Avignon, each calling the other illegitimate. Darcy has a specific problem. In the village of Lirey, a few hours' ride, a small collegiate church has become a pilgrimage site. The clergy there are displaying a cloth. They claim it is the burial shroud of Jesus Christ. Pilgrims are arriving from across France. Money is flowing. Darcy dips his quill. He writes to Clement VII, the Avignon Pope, the Pope recognized by France. He writes carefully, with the weight of a man who knows this letter will make enemies. He writes that 30 years ago, the previous bishop, Henri de Poitiers, investigated this cloth. He found the man who made it, a painter, alive, who confessed, in his own words, that he had created the image with his own hands. Darcy writes, the truth being attested by the artist who had painted it, that it was a work of human skill and not miraculously wrought. He describes the cloth precisely, a double image, front and back of one man, which matches exactly the shroud we know today. He seals the letter. He sends it. The Pope replies within the year. The cloth may continue to be shown. It must be announced, clearly, that it is not a true relic, only a representation. But the indulgences for pilgrims who come to view it, those remain valid. Darcy reads the letter, sets it down. The crowds in Lorraine keep coming. The church keeps collecting. The cloth stays on its frame. The painter's name, the man who confessed, whose words were recorded by a bishop, sent to a pope, preserved in the Vatican archive, is never written down. 636 years later, we still don't know who he was, or whether he existed at all. That absence, the missing name, is either the most suspicious detail in this entire story, or the most ordinary one. A bishop writes that a man confessed. He does not record the name. Why not? Scene 3. Turin. April 11th, 1997. 11 o'clock at night. The Cathedral of St. John the Baptist is dark. The city outside is quiet. Then, smoke. Fire breaks out in the Guarini Chapel, the 17th century masterpiece built specifically to house the shroud. Its ceiling spirals upward in impossible geometry, stone folded and layered like a frozen whirlpool, designed to feel like the laws of architecture had been briefly suspended in honor of what was kept inside. Now the stone is cracking from the heat. The roof begins to fail. Firefighters arrive within minutes. The shroud is inside, behind glass. Bulletproof glass, 4 layers thick, installed to protect it from thieves, from vandals, from whoever the world might send against it. Now the glass is also trapping it inside the fire. A firefighter named Mario Trematore picks up a sledgehammer. He swings. The glass holds. He swings again. Stone falls from the ceiling around him. The smoke is thick, the temperature rising. Again, again. On the 8th or 10th blow, the accounts differ slightly, the way accounts of violent moments always do. The glass fractures. He reaches through, pulls the case out. He carries it away from the building. The investigation afterward. Arson. Someone started this fire deliberately. The target was the chapel built to protect the shroud. The bulletproof glass installed to guard it was the same glass that nearly sealed it in the flames. The protection became the danger. Mario Trematore is asked afterward what he was thinking when he was swinging the sledgehammer with the ceiling coming down. He says, "I wasn't thinking about anything. I just knew it had to come out." He doesn't elaborate. Some moments resist being explained by the people inside them. 3 moments, 3 centuries. A discovery that reversed 500 years of understanding in a dark room in 1898. A letter from a bishop who named a forger, and no one wrote down the name. A firefighter who broke through 4 layers of bulletproof glass because something told him to. But wait, here is the question that nobody puts at the center, though it deserves to be there. What if the most unsettling thing about the shroud isn't whether the image is authentic? What if it's what this cloth does to the people who get close to it? Here is what the science actually confirmed. The blood on the shroud is real human blood, type AB. It came from a body that was not washed before contact with the linen. The serum halos, faint clear rings around the clots, only visible under ultraviolet light, prove it. They form only when blood begins clotting before it touches the fabric. Fresh wounds, unwashed, directly onto the cloth. The image is not paint. 3 independent analyses found no pigment, no dye, no binding medium. The discoloration exists only on the outermost layer of the fibers, only on the very crowns, where the threads peak above the weave, not between them, as if the image arrived from outside, from above, and went no deeper than a fraction of a millimeter. The image contains three-dimensional spatial information. When fed into a computer program designed to analyze satellite photography, tools meant to calculate the physical relief of terrain from light intensity, it produces a coherent map of a human body. A painting does not do this. A painting is a record of how something looked to one person from one direction. This image behaves as a record of where something was in space. In 2002, restorers removed the backing cloth sewn onto the shroud in the 1600s. No one had seen the reverse side in nearly 4 centuries. On the back, a second image, faint, partial, the same face. No one knew it was there. The image had passed through the cloth, and yet, 3 independent laboratories, Oxford, Zurich, Arizona, dated the linen to between 1260 and 1390. Medieval, not 1st century Palestine, medieval France. So here is where you actually are, if you are being honest with yourself. The image should not exist the way it exists, not created the way it is, not containing what it contains. No known medieval technique produces a photographic negative. No painter constructs spatial depth data into a cloth. No forger, however brilliant, creates an image that only reveals itself in a photographic process that will not be invented for 5 more centuries. But the cloth is, probably, medieval. Both of these things are real. They do not fit together. And this is what I think is actually happening when millions of people find themselves standing in line to walk past this linen for 30 seconds in a cathedral in Turin. They are not there to get an answer. They have already figured out that there isn't one. They are there because this is one of the few remaining objects in the modern world that does not resolve, that holds two completely contradictory sets of evidence and will not collapse into either one. It stays open. You know that feeling, the question you carry that doesn't have clean edges. The thing you're not sure you believe, but you're also not sure you don't. The part of your life that feels like it should have a clear meaning by now, and doesn't. The shroud has been that question, physically, for 600 years. Bishops declared it fake. Popes ignored the declaration. Scientists dated it to the Middle Ages. Photographers reversed 5 centuries of assumptions in a dark room in one night. Arsonists tried to burn it. A firefighter broke through bulletproof glass to save it. And the church, when asked what it is, calls it an icon. Not a relic, an icon. Which means, not proof, a mirror. What if that's the point? Not that you look at it and believe, but that you look at it, and the question it refuses to answer becomes yours to carry. There is a woman whose name the records do not preserve. She was in Turin in April of 2010, during the 6-week public exhibition, the first in 12 years. 2 million people filed through the cathedral between April and May. The line moved slowly. Outside, the city smelled of spring. Inside, the air was cool and slightly stale, the way air in old stone buildings always is, holding something the ventilation can't quite reach. She had come a long way. The accounts that survive are secondhand, written down afterward by a journalist covering the exhibition, but the detail rings true. She had not slept the night before, not from excitement, from something closer to dread. She had lost her daughter the previous year. Illness. Quick, as some illnesses are, the kind that give you almost no time to adjust before they take everything. She had stopped going to church, not from anger, from the simpler and more honest reason, she had nothing left to say. She waited in line for 3 hours. When she finally reached the cloth, she had 30 seconds. She said nothing. She reported later that she did not pray in any conventional sense. She did not ask for anything. She just looked and wept. Not the weeping of relief, not the weeping of someone whose question has been answered. The weeping that happens when something outside you, finally, matches the size of what is inside you. I didn't feel better, she said. I felt less alone. That is not a miracle, by the definition that requires explanation. It is something smaller and stranger and more durable. The sense that your grief has a witness. There is a second account, briefer. A man, a doctor named in the source, who attended the 2015 exhibition during Pope Francis's visit. He had spent his career in oncology. He had watched a great many people die. He was not, by his own description, a man who prayed easily or often. He stood before the shroud for what he estimated was 20 seconds. He wrote afterward, "I expected to feel nothing. That has always been my experience with religious objects. But something was different. I stood there and thought, completely involuntarily, this is what suffering looks like when it is over. And I realized I had never seen that before. Only suffering, not the aftermath." He did not convert. He did not change his medical practice or his habits or his relationship with the church. But he kept a photograph of the shroud's face on his desk for the rest of his career. Not as a declaration, as a reminder of something he had not found words for yet. Neither of these stories requires the shroud to be authentic. That is the uncomfortable thing about them. They do not depend on it. The shroud is not always visible. It is kept in the chapel of the Holy Shroud, Cappella della Sindone, inside the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, Italy. Piazza San Giovanni, in the center of the old city, a short walk from the train station. The chapel was designed in the 17th century by Guarino Guarini, one of the strangest architectural minds of his era, a man who believed that a building housing something sacred should feel, structurally, like it was defying the ordinary laws of matter. The ceiling spirals upward in interlocking stone arches, the geometry tightening as it rises, until the lantern at the top seems impossibly far away and impossibly small. The room was built to make you feel that something here does not obey ordinary rules. The chapel was damaged in the 1997 fire and reopened after full restoration in 2018. When the shroud is not on public display, it is stored there, flat, in a temperature-controlled case, behind the bulletproof glass that has since been replaced. Public exhibitions are rare, announced months in advance, usually held in spring or summer, lasting several weeks. The last full exhibition was 2015. A shorter display occurred in 2018. No date has been announced for the next one. High-definition images, detailed enough to study the cloth surface at close range, are available through the Diocese of Turin's official website. The 2013 release includes photographs that can be magnified to show the individual fibers of the weave. People come to this place when they have run out of the kind of certainty that used to feel sufficient. When a diagnosis has made the future into a different country, when a loss has revealed that the life they were living was built on assumptions they hadn't noticed until they were gone. When, and this is the most common reason, though the least dramatic, they simply feel persistently that something is missing, and they have exhausted every other explanation. The shroud has no feast day, no prescribed prayer, no official protocol for what you are supposed to feel. That absence is, perhaps, the most honest thing about it. If you go, and most people who want to never do, because exhibitions are rare and the journey is long, you will have between 30 and 60 seconds. You will not be allowed to photograph it. The room is silent. Bring the question you can't resolve. That is enough. We started with something strange. A piece of linen, a body pressed into fabric, a face that only becomes clear when you reverse it. 600 years of declaration and counter-declaration, fire and restoration, science and silence. A bishop who named a forger and forgot the name. A firefighter who broke bulletproof glass on instinct. A woman who wept not because she found an answer, but because she felt, for the first time in a year, that someone understood the size of what she was carrying. The shroud is not a proof. The Church has known this, officially, since 1390. It has said so. And it has continued to preserve the cloth, display the cloth, build chapels around it, move it through wars, bring it home after each catastrophe. Because some things are not there to be proven. Some things are there to stay open. There is a thought I keep returning to. Segundo Pia stood in his darkroom in 1898 and reversed the image, and what had been invisible for 500 years became visible. Not new, not different, just finally seen. What if that is the actual structure of what this cloth is for? Not a relic that guarantees, not a painting that persuades. A surface designed to be reversed, where what you bring to it, your doubt, your grief, your exhaustion, the version of faith you're embarrassed to still be carrying, is the negative. And the image that develops is not the one on the cloth. The shroud has been in the same city for 446 years. Through plague, through the end of the monarchy that owned it, through a fire that was started to destroy it. It is still there, whatever it is. What is it that you keep coming back to? The question you haven't been able to let go of, no matter how many times you've told yourself you've moved on. If this reached something in you, something you don't have clean words for yet, leave it in the comments. Not an argument, just, what did you feel? We read all of them. And if you want to keep going, there are other images, other objects, other 600-year-old mysteries that refuse to resolve. Subscribe, we'll go slowly.